Hello everyone, I'm Dan Philgreen, and this is Shell Point Today for Wednesday, October 28th. We have a couple of Oktoberfest happenings to share with you. You can enjoy some classic German food at an exciting annual event in the Crystal Dining Room on the island. From 4 to 7 p.m. this evening, Larry Roberts will entertain you with lively Oktoberfest tunes on the accordion while you dine. The scrumptious dinner buffet includes Jaeger Schnitzel, or fried pork, short ribs, German sausages with apples and sauerkraut, Bavarian chicken, meatballs and caper sauce, red cabbage, butternut squash, soup, German chocolate cake, and more. Head over to the Crystal for dinner this evening for only $14.95. And another Oktoberfest dinner is on Friday with an outing to the Schnitzel House family-owned restaurant in Fort Myers. There you'll enjoy an excellent selection of German menu items, including 19 varieties of schnitzel to suit your taste. Also on the menu are several American favorites as well. The cost of the outing is $7 with dinner on your own. Court pickups begin at 4:30 p.m. on the island. Sherry Brown, Director of Long-Term Care, invites you to join her for an ice cream social and tour of the Larsen Pavilion tomorrow. To tell you more about it, here is Sherry.
Who doesn't love ice cream? Hello, I'm Sherry Brown, and I'm the Director of Long-Term Care and acting as the administrator in the Larsen Pavilion here at Shell Point. I would encourage all of you to come and join us to get the sweet scoop about the Larsen Pavilion. Our open house is Thursday afternoon, October 29th at 2:00 p.m. You'll be able to have your questions answered and enjoy a tour of our beautiful rehab center. So call Randa Lee at 415-5432 to get your name on the reservation list. We'll look forward to your joining us and learning more about what you need to know. Everything from an admission to the pavilion, from a hospital stay, or an emergency need. We'll try to answer all your questions. Looking forward to seeing you there.
The first documented usage of an airplane in a presidential campaign was in 1932, when Franklin Roosevelt flew from stop to stop in an old Ford Trimotor. Very few Ford Trimotors are still in existence today. The most notable one is now on display at the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. It's a model that was restored by American Airlines and barnstormed the country in the 1960s. Now, stay with me because this is where it gets interesting. The pilot that American Airlines chose to fly this restored Ford Trimotor was one Frank Daley, now a Shell Point resident. His work was noticed by the presidential campaign of Barry Goldwater, and in 1964, they hired Frank to fly Goldwater and a collection of reporters across the country, transforming modern presidential campaigns into an airborne phenomenon. Now, along the way, Frank had quite a few adventures with the Goldwater campaign, including a close call that involved, believe it or not, the old Ford Trimotor. Let's hear what presidential campaigning looked like from the air in 1964.
Well, I grew up in New Jersey, and I was born and raised in a town called Elizabeth, New Jersey. And while I was a senior in high school, I went over to the Newark Post Office and enlisted in the Army Air Corps. So they took a train load of us folks over to Nashville, to a place, Smyrna, Tennessee, which was a B-24 transition base where they were putting crews together for B-24s. Officers there said, would any of you guys like to go up for an airplane ride? Well, I'd never been in an airplane before. So I, along with most of my friends there, I said, heck yeah, I'd like to go up in an airplane. I said, okay, well, we arranged the schedule. And boy, I thought this was really great. So they were shooting landings, takeoffs, touch and goes, and go around and around, checking out these pilots before they sent them overseas. And the instructor leaned back one time there and said, Frank, we'd like you to go in the back of the airplane and get some from one of the guys back there for me. So I said, sure. Well, how do you get in the back of a B-24 when you're up in front? Well, there's only one way to get there, and that's to go through the bomb bay. And there's a narrow catwalk that's 8 inches wide that goes from the front of the bomb bay to the back, and two little chains to hold on to. So I started back through there, and I was halfway back to Bombay. It's probably about 8 or 9 feet long. And I was halfway through, and all of a sudden, the Bombay doors opened up, and I was looking straight down at the cold Tennessee countryside. And of course, there was a lot of laughter up in the cockpit, but I stood there on that little passageway frozen. I found out they did this with just about everybody. And so we all had a big laugh about it. But anyhow, that was the beginning of my career in the Air Force. I did go through the whole training program, and I learned how to fly airplanes. I was discharged from the Air Corps in 1946. I looked at college when I got out, and I tried that for a little bit. And I'm not a very good student, so I went back to flying airplanes, and I figured this is better than working for a living, so I stayed with airplanes. A week after I sent an application into American Airlines, they sent me a telegram to come down to Los Angeles and be interviewed. And I talked with the chief pilot for about 15 or 20 minutes, and heck, I had a job. And so I stayed with American Airlines for 35 years, and in 1985, at age 60, they said, "You guys are too old to be flying those big jet airplanes. You gotta retire." Barry Goldwater, Senator Goldwater, was an Air Force pilot, you know, and the Republican National Committee at that time decided they wanted, I'm sure with Barry's influence, wanted a brand new 727 to campaign with. And my boss selected a crew, and I was selected to be the co-pilot on that Senator Goldwater campaign 727. So we went out to the Boeing factory and picked up a brand new 727 off the production line, flew it down to Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is American Airlines' big overhaul base, and they configured the inside of the airplane for his mission. And they put 2 beds up front and a very elaborate desk. We took the airplane down to Phoenix, Arizona to meet the senator. And when he walked in the airplane and he saw 2 beds and this elaborate desk, he said, "We're not going to have any time for sleeping on this thing. Get those things off of here." We went on for 3 months. It was a very intense 3 months, stopping at, I can't tell you how many airports we went into, but a lot. Bristol, Tennessee, Tri-Cities, Tennessee. American Airlines had a Ford Tri-Motor that they resurrected from junk, spent $1 million on it and put it back to original condition. Incidentally, it's hanging up at the Smithsonian Institute right now. Well, anyhow, we flew that around the United States. The tower guys there remembered us coming through with the Ford. They said, "Hey, you guys did a nice flyby with the Ford before you left. How about doing a flyby with that Boeing 727? Yeah, okay, well, we'll see what we can do. So Ralph and I, we did this flyby, and we come down the runway at about 100 feet, going pretty fast, a lot faster than the Ford. We didn't tell anybody what we were doing, and the press was very upset about this, because of the newspapers. The next day it was Buzz and Barry all over the country in the newspapers. And anyhow, the boss says, "You guys pick up your bags, take your belongings, get off that airplane, come back to New York, you're out of there." He gets on the telephone and he called Mr. C.R. Smith, who was the legacy president of American Airlines. He hung up and he says, the senator told us, "I think things might be okay, but I'm not sure." Took off from Cleveland and went someplace else. And he went down to do his campaigning. We stayed on the airplane again. The phone rang. Again, we answered the phone. It was the boss. The boss said, "Stay on the airplane. Don't come back." And he says, "But you guys are in deep doo-doo." even when you do come back, when this thing is, you're going to be on the airplane until its charter is over. Okay. Whew. Now, the senator, what a nice guy he is. He was really a sweet guy to work for. He said, "Do you guys want to take your wives with us?" We said, "Boy, our wives would love to come with us for the last couple of weeks." So he very gently removed 3 reporters from the back of the airplane and got 3 seats, and our wives came and went with us the last 2 weeks on the campaign, stayed with us. But 3 of the members of the press had to leave. And well, anyhow, the girls got nice seats in the back and stayed with us for those 3 weeks. And then when the campaigning was over and election day came along, we were in Phoenix, of course, which is where the senator's home was. And he put us up in a very nice hotel there in Phoenix called Camelback with our wives, and we enjoyed a few days of rest and recuperation after 3 months of pretty intense going. The senator's staff was a man that owned a jewelry store in Phoenix, and we asked him if he could make up a plaque for us of the United States and identify all the cities that we went to and engrave them into this sterling silver plaque. And on the election night, in about 8 o'clock at night, we called over to the senator's house in Scottsdale and asked if we could come over, and they said, "Oh, sure, there's security around there, but we'll let them know that you're coming over." So Ralph and Joe and I went over to Barry's with the house with this plaque that we had made, and we went up, and this was, they're still counting the votes, and there was a little tension. Things were not going well. We gave the senator and Peggy, his wife, this plaque. Oh, he thought it was great. And it hangs up in the wall in their house as we speak. That was the conclusion of 3.5 months of intense, stressful flying on the Barry Goldwater presidential campaign.
And now it's time to take a look at today's happenings, Academy News, menus, and Village Church connections.
Hello and welcome to the Happening segment of ShellPoint TV. I'm Caitlin Van Scoy, and I'm here to give you all of the Wednesday's activities that happen here at ShellPoint. We start at 7:45 with men's Bible study in the Osprey Room on the island. And men's match play tennis will be played at the Woodlands Tennis Courts at 8 o'clock. Lilly and Company Jewelers will be here for their weekly service at 8:45 in the Resident Activity Center on the island. And Jurassic Travel will be here from 9 a.m. to 12 o'clock in the Egret Room to help you with all of your personal traveling needs. Also at 9 o'clock, the men's round robin doubles tennis. That'll be happening at the Woodlands Tennis Courts. And Watercolor Group with Phil Hilton is at 9 o'clock in the art studio down in the Island Tunnel. The card making and scrapbooking group will be gathering in the Tarpon Room on the island at 9:15. And at 10 o'clock, the ladies' Bible study will be in the Osprey Room on the island. Another 10 o'clock activity is men's match play tennis. That'll be at the Woodlands Tennis Courts. And a trip is going out. It's Crow, Lunch, and Learn. It leaves from the island at 10:15, 10:25 Woodlands, and 10:35 Eagles Preserve and Estuary. You do need to sign up for that trip. At 10:15, the Model Yacht Sailing Club will be at the Commons Lake at the Woodlands. And our last morning activity is Ball Edition. That's a Health Connections class at the Huth Club, and that'll be at 11:30. We move to the afternoon for a 12:45 Health Connections class, Advanced Senior Strength in the Health Club on the island. 1 o'clock's the time for chess in the Library Lounge on the island. And the Hearing Enrichment Group will be gathering in the Manatee Room on the island at 1:15. The Model Train Room will be open for complimentary tours and viewing from 1:30 to 3:30. That's down in the train room on the island. At 1:45, a Health Connections class, Balance and Mobility Training for Beginners. That'll be in the Health Club on the island, and that one's currently full. Library Book Talk will be held in the Social Center on the island at 2:15. And head over to the Grand Cypress Room of the Woodlands for Jazz and Stuff at 2:30. We move to 3 o'clock for Bible study in the Community Room of King's Crown on the island. Another 3 o'clock activity is the Health Connections class, Pilates Stretch, in the Health Club on the island. From 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock, we will have the Oktoberfest celebration with entertainment in the Crystal Dining Room on the island, so make sure you join us down there. At 4:30, we have indoor bocce in the Health Club on the island. And at 5 o'clock, the singles table is available at the Crystal Dining Room. We move to 5:45 for church choir rehearsal in the Village Church, and that'll be in the choir room. And our last Wednesday activity is 7:15, prayer and praise in the Village Church on the island. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you right back here tomorrow.
Hi, I'm Terry Kolath with the Academy information for Wednesday. At 10 o'clock, our painting class, Color, 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 continues in the Sable Room of the Woodlands. At 10 o'clock, a legacy seminar, Financial and Estate Planning for Women, will take place in the Grand Cypress Room of the Woodlands, and sign-up is required. At 1 o'clock, Intermediate Bridge Session 2 continues in the Game Room of the Woodlands. And at 1:30, Torn Paper Self-Portrait continues in the Sable Room of the Woodlands. At 3 o'clock, Word Processing Prep School continues at the Computer Center at the Woodlands. I'd like to tell you about a new class coming tomorrow, New Life for Old Computers, with Lou Gehrig of Lakewood.
Menus for Wednesday, October 28th. In the Crystal Room, the platter is chicken and dumplings with seasoned greens. For dinner, it's Oktoberfest buffet for $14.95. The soup is tortilla and sausage. In the Island Cafe, for lunch, it's a chicken and cheese quesadilla with fries for $7.75. And at dinner, it's grilled shrimp for $8.75. The Palm Grill has fried oysters for $16.95, or you can have sirloin steak au poivre for $16.95. All menus are available 24 hours a day at www.shellpoint.net.
Hi, welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm Andy Hawkins, the senior pastor of the Village Church. You know, as we consider the LifeQuest program at Shell Point, we are immediately struck by how comprehensive it is. 6 different dimensions of well-being are identified. There's the natural environment, the physical, the emotional, the educational, the community and social, and finally the spiritual. Programming at Shell Point revolves around these 6 areas, as you are aware, and that gives multiple opportunities for residents and employees, by the way, to grow well-rounded and fulfill our genuine humanity. And quite obviously, we at the Village Church are primarily concerned about the spiritual dimension. And so our programming is concerned about teaching our community who God is and who we are before God. It's also clear that the dimensions of LifeQuest are not mutually exclusive. There's often a great deal of overlap between them. For example, we can experience the natural environment in a community or social context, and we often do. We can also learn about the natural environment and so connect the educational with that particular dimension. The natural environment can also have positive emotional effects on us, the natural environment and the emotional. And we may experience the natural environment by engaging in physical activity within the beauty that our wonderful location provides. So it's easy to see connections within and between each of those dimensions. I have made the case that the spiritual dimension has a special relationship with all the other dimensions. And in this series of devotionals, we are exploring how the spiritual dimension provides support and integrity to the other dimensions. Today we're going to consider the natural environment. The biblical perspective is that the natural world is created, that God, who is outside of the created realm, who is uncreated and is transcendent, has made the world for His purposes. Right at the very beginning of the Bible, we read in Genesis 1:1, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters." So in that text, we see that the Spirit of God was involved from the very beginning. And note His role in the creation account. The original creation material was without form and void, and darkness was its overriding characteristic. Chaos would be an accurate descriptor at that particular point in the history of the universe. But the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the deep, and as the creation account unfolds, we see order emerging from the chaos. That order can be discerned in the days of creation. On day 1, the domain of light was created. On day 2, the waters below and the heavens above were created. On day 3, the earth was created. And on the remaining days, those domains of creation were further ordered and governed. On day 4, for instance, the sun, moon, and the stars were said to govern the night and the day. On day 5, the birds and the sea creatures were created to govern the heavens and the seas. And on day 6, living creatures fitted for dry land appeared, and then human beings were made to govern the earth. And so order out of chaos, the overriding work of the Spirit of God, right from the very beginning, the spiritual dimension was the determining factor in establishing what we see today as our natural environment. You know, the late cosmologist Carl Sagan titled his greatest work, which was inclusive of a PBS television series as well as a book, he entitled it Cosmos, which means a world seen as the well-ordered whole. That's what the word cosmos means. He was a marvelous communicator of the ordered nature of the universe. Now, Professor Sagan was not a believer. Nevertheless, the universe that he saw and that we see exhibited an astonishing order. It was cosmos, not chaos. But what Professor Sagan wasn't able to see was how that order emerged from the chaos. And when we experience our natural environment, which we do so daily, so frequently here at Shell Point, we do see cosmos, we see order, and we can't help but be reminded.
Thanks for joining us for today's edition of Shell Point Today. Return tomorrow when certified group instructor Lindy Smith visits with Heather Batty to talk about mirror image fitness. And Robin Church will share with us some exciting specials for November at the Island Salon. Finally, resident Dee Horn will talk about the Fine and Performing Arts Concert Series, which kicks off with the National Dance Company of Siberia. Until then, this has been Shell Point Today for Wednesday, October 28th. I'm Dan Philgreen, and on behalf of everyone here at Shell Point TV, we hope you have a great day, and we'll see you again tomorrow.